How many species of birds breed in California? When do they breed in California? Where do they breed in California? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Hello, everyone. I'm Aaron. I'm a senior environmental scientist and a lifelong birder. Let's talk about the California Bird Atlas. The California Bird Atlas is an exciting new effort that is just getting rolling. So before we talk about the California Bird Atlas, though, that's some background. What is a bird atlas? Well, it's a systematic data collection and a data set describing what birds are breeding in a specific geographic area, usually a state or a county, something like that, where those birds are breeding, what timing those breeding activities are happening, and also sometimes some sort of associated surrounding breeding bird behaviors. Now, of the 50 states in the US, 44 of them have statewide breeding bird atlases. California is not one of them. Within California, 15 of the 58 counties have county breeding bird atlases, but 15 out of 58 is not a great ratio. And so an effort has been started to develop a statewide California breeding bird atlas. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below to the California Bird Atlas website where you can learn a lot more about this. But it's a really amazing effort that I want to help get the word out about. And so that's what I'm doing right here. Because this is a project that has a lot of potential power, a lot of potential uses, and it's really easy for all of us to contribute. So the way this is going to work is this group that is putting together this ambitious statewide atlas plan has divided the entire state into 16,500 grid squares. And they are hoping to collect data in every single one of those squares to kind of take in a full picture of breeding birds in our great state of California. So a few things. One is, that's a lot of ground to cover, and they're not even going to try to do it in a year. The California Bird Atlas, as is standard for bird atlases, is going to be spread across a 5-year effort. So 2026, 27, 28, 29, and 2030 are the big data collection years for this effort. And that is to get a really representative, really accurate view of all the birds that are breeding in the state. So, if some specific species maybe doesn't breed in the state in one given year, that's okay. Maybe we'll catch it the next year. So by doing 5 years of data collection, it really means that we're going to be as accurate as possible. Also, each grid is hopefully going to get coverage more than once, right? You don't want to visit a specific spot in California just one time because, again, what if you miss something? So there are some sort of thresholds, things like 20 hours of coverage per grid. So that, again, people can really know, can be really confident that the birds that we're seeing or were not seen in that particular area of California is accurate. This group is also collecting data 12 months out of the year. And this is, again, to get as full a spread and as accurate a picture of what is happening with birds and when as possible. Because we could certainly make some assumptions like, oh, most birds breed in the springtime and say, oh, let's just collect data in the springtime. But then we'd be missing early breeding birds. We wouldn't know when that first great horned owl, which is a really early breeder, starts. It could be all the way in January. And if we only are looking in spring, we would miss that. So 12 months out of the year, statewide coverage, 5 years running, a big effort to collect as much detailed data as possible. All right, so how is this data going to be collected? Well, a lot of it is by you and me. One of the things that I think is really powerful about this breeding bird atlas effort is that it is going to gather data from a lot of citizen science sources. eBird is probably the biggest one. In fact, there is a specific eBird project for the California Bird Atlas that has been developed. It is functional. You can go and you can join that project right now if you have an eBird account. And I encourage you to do so because that's a direct way of funneling observations that we make into this effort. It makes it sort of as easy as possible for the organizers to gather that information. And I'm all for making their lives easier. That sounds great. But that's not the only source that they're going to pull from. They're also going to pull from other citizen science platforms like iNaturalist, and also from governmental organizations like the Breeding Bird Survey, and possibly Christmas bird counts, but definitely like the Bird Banding Lab and stuff like that. So lots of different sources of potential data that this organization is going to pull from to make their data set as full and rich and complete as possible. And also, they're not just going to rely on volunteers either, because you can imagine California is a big state. Some of those spots, some of those parts of the state are pretty remote. Some of them are going to get easily covered by all the birding that we're going to do. Some of them might get covered by extra ambitious volunteers going out to hit specific remote spots that maybe they are fond of. But there are still going to be places that are just not going to get hit by your everyday, average, normal eBirder activity. And so there are going to be some interns hired to go out and cover specific target areas that are maybe undercovered by the rest of us. But so overall, hoping for statewide coverage, which is pretty darn exciting. Now, okay, so let's say we help out with this. We all join eBird. We all join that specific California Bird Atlas project. We are funneling our data into that project. Then what? So what? What is the importance? Why are breeding bird atlases useful at all? Well, they represent, first off, a really rich data set so that we really know what is the biological diversity of the breeding birds in our state. That's useful information all by itself. You can't conserve birds if you don't know which birds are around. It also helps establish a benchmark. You can imagine that after 2030, when this project is done, we will have this incredible picture of where birds are breeding and when they're breeding. Then, imagine fast forwarding 10 years. People can examine data again, and they can look back at that breeding bird atlas and say, okay, are birds still breeding in the same places that they were before? Are birds still breeding at the same times of year as they were before? They have this powerful benchmark to compare future change to. This is how we track climate change. This is one of the great ways that people have tracked climate change. It's also a really interesting way of tracking how birds move, because beyond climate change, birds move around sometimes. And for example, the great-tailed grackle has been expanding its range across the southwestern, western US. It's been a pretty impressive population explosion. And one of the ways that you could track that is by looking at breeding bird atlases over the course of years in different states, different counties, and watch how, there were no great-tailed grackles in Northern California at such and such a date. Say 50 years ago. There basically were none. Now, they're, especially in Central California and also northern, they're spreading in north. There are lots of places where these birds are breeding. To track changes of any kind, climate change, geographic expansions, any kind, you need the baseline beforehand. And so that is one of the powerful functions that this breeding bird atlas does for California. So I really hope that you go check out the link, check out the website, check out this incredible new project. Right now, it is the 1st of February, 2026. So this is very early in their data collection process, which means now is a great time to join the project and start contributing as much data as possible over the next 5 years. You and I can make a big impact on this project by just going birding and then going onto eBird and recording all of our observations. Like I said, hope you do. There are instructions on their website of how to find the eBird project, how to join it, how to contribute data. It's very straightforward, very user-friendly. And so check them out. Happy birding, and I hope that we all can contribute to this incredible effort of creating California's first ever statewide breeding bird atlas. Thank you very much for the view. Subscribe to the channel if you want to follow along and learn more about projects like this and nature and science and birds. As always, enjoy the natural world.